All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming out today during what I know is a busy period of the year. We'll get this meeting called to order at 3:06 p.m. Roll is being taken by means of sign-in, and if you have not signed in on your way in by the sheets by the front door, please make sure you do so on your way out so we can record that accurately in the minutes. We do have a number of alternate representatives today. Dave Como for Michael Holt, Holly Anderson for Noah DeWitt, Aaron Yamada for Carmela Matza, and John Snow as an alternate for Peter Doran. Are there any alternates whose name I did not call? Yes. Sure. Okay. Laura Ainsworth for Jennifer Scott. All right. Do we have that, Michelle? Terrific. Thank you. And yes. Okay. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that one more time? Okay. For Ed Gibbons. Are we good? And if you wouldn't mind, just on your way out, if you didn't do so already, please do sign in next to the name of the person for whom you're serving as alternate. But thank you very much. Any additional alternates? Right. We do have a number of guests today. Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry, could you repeat who you are serving as an alternate for? Sam Snow? Thank you. We good, Michelle? All right, thank you. Any additional? All right, thank you, everyone. Our guests today are Dr. Matthew Calamia, Associate Dean of the Pinkie Gordon Lane Graduate School, and Michael Collar, George W. Barano Jr. Professor, College of Agriculture, and Chair of the Faculty Senate Courses and Curricula Committee. And we do have one public comment. Zane Suter Benfield, LSU Students for Democratic Society, commenting on proposed revisions to Policy Statement 104, dismissal for cause for faculty. To remind our public commenters that you have 3 minutes and must address your comments to the substance of the matter for which you registered to speak.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zane. I'm speaking on behalf of Students for Democratic Society. The threat of ICE looms very large in the world today. We've seen mass thugs like abducting elementary school students in Minneapolis. We've seen people getting shot on the street. Down in New Orleans, they've gotten the brunt of the action here in Louisiana so far. But Jeff Landry has said that he wants to unleash ICE on Baton Rouge, Shreveport, all over the state. So obviously we're concerned. And here at LSU last summer, our administration, the previous administration, collaborated with ICE to abduct 2 Iranian students from their off-campus apartment. They wanted to make sure it didn't happen on campus, so they didn't cause a fuss. And this is just really despicable. So SDS is asking LSU's admin, President Wade Bruce, to commit to not collaborating with ICE in any way, shape, or form. We're asking them to not collaborate in any way, alert students and faculty to the presence of ICE on campus, to proactively monitor student visas, notify them if their visa status changes, and help them maintain their documented status. And we're asking that LSU officially reject the Trump Compact Agreement. These are very simple demands, and they affect us all. Like, it's not just from students. Like, of course, I'm speaking as a student from my perspective, but faculty are at risk too, as are everyone except for the administration who gets paid all the money. They don't have to worry about state violence, what we do. And that's why I think we need to work together. These are very simple demands, but we've delivered our demands and a petition, a sizable petition, to Wade Bruce's office twice. He hasn't even responded, hasn't even acknowledged in any way. Even Tulane, which is not a great administration, has taken measures very similar to this, official measures. And I mean, we're better in Tulane, guys. Like, come on. Clearly, we need to put some pressure on him. So we're here asking you guys to put up signs, these signs saying that ICE is not welcome in your buildings. We're asking you, like, we have a bunch of them to distribute, to take them to your fellow faculty members, to your department heads, and effectively put them up on the entrances of all buildings and to make a de facto sanctuary campus for what that's worth. Leaving President Bruce with no option but to just codify what we make de facto by ourselves, through this action. So
30 seconds remaining.
So at the end of the meeting, we have a bunch of signs here. We'd like to pass them out to you guys to take them back, put them up in your buildings, do what we can to make this campus safer for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, and that concludes the public comment portion of today's meeting. Moving on to the minutes. The minutes from our last meeting on March 23rd were distributed via email in advance of today's meeting. Unless there are any objections, we will forego a reading of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes as distributed? Hearing no corrections, the minutes are adopted as distributed, and thank you to Secretary Osborne, as always, for putting those together. Moving on to the President's report. Dear Senators, with a full agenda for today's meeting, I will keep my President's report concise. I know you're not used to that, so I just wanted to give you a warning in advance. Item 1, Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Provost Search Update. The search committee for the next Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Provost has concluded its work, and arrangements are currently being made to bring the finalists to campus the weeks of May 4th and May 11th for events with stakeholder groups. I thank the firm Academic Search, Committee Chair Dean Vicki Colvin, and my fellow committee members for their efforts during a brief but intense period. Though greatly accelerated, the search was thorough and yielded a very competitive pool of interested parties. I encourage you to participate in the forums with the finalists and take advantage of the channels which will be made available to provide feedback to the Chancellor as he deliberates whom to appoint to the position. Item 2, Course and Instructor Evaluation Committee. The Joint Faculty Senate, OAA, and OIE Committee to review course and instructor evaluations is now fully staffed and has already held its first 2 meetings. I look forward to the committee's recommendations, which I anticipate will begin to be implemented in the fall 2026 semester. In the meantime, please remind your students about the importance of completing their course evaluations and encourage them to do so before they close on Sunday, May 3rd. 3, Attendance and Generative Artificial Intelligence Surveys. Enrollment Management has distributed the Senate's Attendance Survey and the Faculty Senate Ad Hoc Generative Artificial Intelligence Committee Survey on Student Use of GAI to over 27,000 students via multiple channels. We thank them for their partnership in getting these to students and look forward to the results. 4, Legislative Session. Senate leadership is working closely with various administrative units to monitor bills of interest to higher education during the ongoing legislative session. If there is a bill which is of concern to you, please contact us so we can schedule a meeting to discuss the matter. This has been quite an eventful year for LSU, one which has introduced a new leadership team and began the process by which the 5 research campuses within our system will be consolidated into a single flagship. I thank each of you for the service you have provided to the Senate and your colleagues during the last 9 months, and I would like to particularly recognize those of you for whom this will be the last meeting of your term. Participation in shared governance is a vital but frequently underappreciated aspect of a faculty member's responsibilities, and our institution is stronger because of your efforts. And I'd also like to extend my personal thanks to the members of the Executive Committee. They provide outstanding service to the Senate and the faculty all year long, and I just really want to express how much I value their service and their contributions and the friendship that develops on the committee over time. So thank you all very much. With that, I conclude my report and would welcome any questions that you have. All right, well, thank you. We will now move on to the first item of business for today, and that is the FSEC elections, which we are obligated to hold at this meeting every year. The offices to be elected include President, Vice President, Secretary, and 2 members at large, keeping in mind that the 3rd member at large position is going to be elected at the September meeting from the incoming cohort of senators. So even though 3 positions on the committee, 2 of them will be elected today at our meeting. We are going to conduct the elections in this order. Once we have concluded one election, we will then proceed with the next. We will declare the candidates who have already declared, open the floor for nominations. In contested elections, each candidate will be provided 2 minutes to read their prepared statement endorsing their candidacy. Candidates in multiple elections will be provided the opportunity to read their statement in the first election in which they are a candidate, and then we will proceed with the vote in each race. For contested elections, it will be by roll call. So we will go through. The secretary will read the roll. When you are called upon, if there is only one position being elected, you will give one name. In the case of the members at large, you will give two names when you are called upon, and we can review that when we get to that election. So we will begin with the election for president, and I will turn the floor over to Vice President Singh to conduct the election.
Okay, so now we are up for elections for the President of the Faculty Senate for 2026-27. Is there a motion to open the elections for the Faculty Senate President? Robert Cook and Rosemary seconds. Right now, there is only one candidate, President Daniel Tirone from HSS. The floor is open now for any other candidate to take part in this election. Okay, hearing no one and seeing no hands, I think the election is determined and President Tirone gets another term. Thank you so much.
Right. And thank you, President Singh, for doing that. Thank you for all of you for the confidence you've shown in me, and I certainly want to continue to represent the Senate to the best of my ability over the next year. So thank you for the opportunity to do so. We now move on to the election for Vice President. Michelle Osborne has withdrawn as a candidate, but Ken Lopata has indicated his interest in serving in this position. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to open nominations for the position of Vice President. Thank you. Scott, is there a second? Okay, thank you. Ken, do you confirm that you would like to stand as a candidate in the election for Vice President? I do. All right, thank you very much. Are there any additional individuals who would like to nominate themselves or others for the position of Vice President? Okay, seeing no other candidates, the nominations have closed, and Ken Lopata has been elected as the Vice President of the Faculty Senate for next year. Congratulations, Ken. Okay, moving on to the election for Secretary. Ken has, of course, been elected as president. He is ineligible to serve as secretary, as was initially declared on the agenda that came out in March. We have one confirmed candidate, Rosemary Peters-Hill, and then Kyla Kazuschyk has indicated that she would also like to run for this position. May I have a motion to open nominations for secretary? Okay, thank you. Robert Cook, is there a second? All right, thank you, Rosemary. Okay, nominations are open. Kyla, do you confirm that you would like to be a candidate for secretary? Thank you very much. Okay, we have two candidates for secretary. Any additional nominations from the floor for the position of secretary? Okay, seeing no additional nominations, I would now invite our candidates to give their statements endorsing their candidacy, and we will go in alphabetical order. So we will begin with Kyla Kazuschyk.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. As my bio shows, I am resolutely committed to service. As Associate Professor of Costume Technology and Costume Shop Manager, I design, build, and mentor students designing and building hundreds of costumes each year for LSU Theater and the Swine Palace. I design and build costumes professionally for the Texas Shakespeare Festival, McNeese Theater, NBA dance teams, and Opera Louisiane. My research extends from devised theater practices to new technologies for mask making and special effects makeup, including bioplastics. I value working efficiently and effectively, managing time carefully, and putting time in when necessary to get the job done. I am actively seeking to be a conduit of information, to ensure that faculty have a voice in the conversation, to devise solutions to every new challenge that we face, from our crumbling buildings to our academic freedom. As your FSEC team, we have made strides towards making our LSU community a better place. We do not all always agree, and it is our wide range of perspectives that helps us to see challenges from multiple angles and develop strong solutions. Thank you for trusting me to serve you so far. If elected again, I will continue to work hard for you. And I only speak once, right? So that applies to I'll work hard for you as secretary or as member at large if I don't win secretary. Thank you
very much. And now Dr. Peters-Hill. Yeah, just for the recording.
Ready?
Hi, y'all. I'm a little nervous, so sorry. I'm Rosemary Peters-Hill from the Department of French Studies. Thank you for hearing me this afternoon. I have served as a senator representing French Studies multiple times in my 18 years at LSU. Faculty governance is not something I participate in at the margins, as one of my favorite novelists recently said, democracy is not a spectator sport, neither is shared governance. Okay? I've spoken on the floor against stripping DEI from LSU's public-facing language, for meaningful faculty raises, against the institutional Grammarly license, for university-wide vaccine policy, and for faculty autonomy in choosing their pedagogical modality during the worst periods of COVID. These were not easy positions to take. I took them because they were right. Most recently, I've also served on the Faculty Senate Generative AI Committee, where I've worked alongside colleagues on one of the most consequential policy questions now facing higher education. That work has sharpened my understanding of how governance decisions made carefully and collectively can have real and lasting institutional effects. As a senator, I represent not only French Studies, my department, but the entire College of Humanities and Social Sciences and all of LSU, and I take that responsibility very seriously. Being a senator has connected me with colleagues across every corner of this university, colleagues I would never have encountered otherwise, most likely, and with whom I've built friendships that go well beyond disciplinary proximity. This is what shared governance at its very best actually produces. I've watched from the auditorium as the Senate's leadership has grown stronger and begun making genuine advances in shared governance. I'm running for secretary of the Faculty Senate Executive Committee because I want to be on the other side of this table. Not as an observer, but as someone who helps drive the energy. 18 years with multiple terms of Senate service, floor debate on contested issues, and committee work on AI policy have all given me a precise understanding of how faculty governance actually functions, its rhythms, its pressure points, and where careful documentation and institutional memory make the difference. That's exactly what a secretary must bring. I may learn on the job about the specifics of the role, but not about the role of the role itself, the place of importance it occupies in the FSEC and the Senate as a whole. We're at 2 minutes. Okay. Thank you for hearing me, and, go Tigers.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you to our candidates for their interest in the position. We will now proceed with roll call vote. Secretary Osborne will call roll. We go in alphabetical order by last name by senator. So please do keep an ear out for your name. Secretary Osborne will repeat your vote back to you after you have stated it. You're voting for one person. And if you're an alternate, when you hear the person for whom you are serving as alternate called, that is when you will register your vote. Any questions before we proceed? Thank you very much.
All right, I'll call the last name, and if I don't see a hand, I'll call the last name and then the college or unit, just in case I end up butchering your name. I apologize ahead of time. Ali? Who would you like to vote for? Okay, so Ali Kazuschyk. Ariana Peters-Hill. Baldridge Kazuschyk. Biswas Kazuschyk. Boutwell Kazuschyk. Bruning Art and Design. Chandler Law Center. Chin. I'm sorry, who was it? Okay. Chin for Peters-Hill. Christofferson Vet Med. Cobb for Kazuschyk. Cook Kazuschyk. Kramer Vet Med. Delzell abstain. DeWitt DeWitt, Peters Hill, Diamond, Law Center, Ding, Engineering, Doran, okay, Duran, Kazuschyk, Ellis, Kazuschyk, Farasat, Kazuschyk, Gaglio, Art and Design, Gibbons, abstain, Goodman, Kazuschyk, Griffin, HSS, Healy, Kazuschyk, Holt, abstain, Holteen, Peters Hill, Jacquette, HSS, Kaiser, Engineering, Kumar, Science, Lathan, VetMed, Ledette, Peters Hill, Lee, Peters Hill, Lee from HSS. Were you from HSS? Okay, there's a Lee from, sorry, 2 Lees in a row. Lee from Science. Okay. And then Lee from HSS is for Peters Hill. Lund, Peters Hill. Manthai, Kazuschyk. Mariotti, Peters Hill. Matthews, Kazuschyk. Matza for Peters Hill. Mukhopadhyay, Coast and Environment. Newcomer, Science. Osborne, I'll pass. Pagliarini for Kazuschyk. Peters Hill for Peters Hill. Pingree for Peters Hill. Satteville from Ag. Sauls from Science. Shergill for Peters Hill. Scott for Peters Hill. Snow for Peters Hill. Sprunger for Kazuschyk. Stannard for Peters Hill. Tiagi from Engineering. Ulig for Kazuschyk. Unel for Peters Hill. Von Boxtel, HSS. Waldron, for Kazuschyk, sorry. Williams Williams for Peters Hill. Shu from engineering. Yang. And Joe from art and design. Okay, and we'll return to me, and I will say Peters Hill. Okay, is there anyone that I didn't call? Anyone who didn't get to vote?
Okay, we will stand at ease for one moment while we tabulate the votes, and we will announce the winner momentarily. All right, Dr. Rosemary Peters Hill has been elected secretary, and congratulations. Okay, we have one more election, and this is for 2 members at large. Dr. Peters Hill is now no longer standing as a candidate in this election due to her election as secretary. So we have 3 confirmed candidates for this election: Mehdi Farasat from engineering, Kristen Healy from ag, and Kyla Kazuschyk from CMDA. At this time, is there a motion to open nominations for the secretary election? Okay, thank you, Dr. Peters Hill. And is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Cook. The nominations from the floor is now open. Is there anyone else who would like to stand as a candidate in the election for secretary? Oh, sorry, member at large. Thank you. Okay, hearing no additional nominations, nominations have closed, and we have our 3 candidates. Kyla Kazuschyk has had the opportunity to present her statement previously, so I would invite Mehdi Farasat from engineering to present his candidate statement.
Good afternoon. My name is Mehdi Farasat. I joined LSU in August 2014. I'm the Entergy Louisiana Associate Professor in Power Engineering, and also I serve as the Associate Chair of the department. My experience as the Associate Chair involves budget oversight, strategic planning, curriculum and graduate program matters, and student-focused initiatives. I'm seeking to actually serve as a member at large on the executive committee because I believe LSU is entering an important period of change, and faculty need representatives who bring both governance experience and understanding of how institutional decisions impact academic units. So with the new university leadership and the goal of LSU becoming a top 50 public research school, I think we may see broader policy discussions about research expectations and workload. And at the College of Engineering, we have already been navigating changes in faculty workload policy associated with the college's research priorities. So I have heard a wide variety of discussions from faculty highlighting important questions about workload, equity, incentives, morale, and how institutions value different kinds of faculty contributions. And as associate chair, I also am responsible for course scheduling. So I also see firsthand how those changes affect faculty assignments, departmental planning, and the day-to-day operation of an academic unit. So as a candidate from the College of Engineering, I would bring those lessons to the executive committee. At the same time, I would listen carefully to colleagues across the university, recognizing that these issues affect disciplines differently. I would also work to ask questions that lead to better policy review. In that way, I would aim to help the executive committee support faculty voice in a way that is constructive, informed, and effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next we invite Kristen Healy.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Dr. Kristen Healy. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Entomology, and we're within the LSU Ag Center. And much of my research fits under the umbrella of very controversial research topics and some non-controversial topics, including the impacts of pesticides to non-target organisms in the environment, climate change impacts, insect vectors of disease pathogens, as well as forensics. And so working in these spaces has really taught me the importance of being an empathetic listener, approaching these complex issues very thoughtfully, recognizing my own potential biases in any of these controversial issues, and making sure I make a conscious effort to set any of those biases aside. I've learned that these progress in these topics require these diverse teams, being willing to listen, respect different viewpoints, and work towards a common ground. All of these things I hope I bring to the Senate Executive Committee. It's been my honor this past year this has been my first year on Senate and in the Executive Committee in serving as a member at large. I'm running for re-election because I genuinely value the opportunity to contribute. I love serving, I love learning, I still have so much to learn. I try to be dependable, engaged. I've never missed a committee meeting, and I try to adjust my schedule to make sure I can support the work of the Senate. I have so much to say, but I don't have the time to say it. But it's been an incredibly rewarding experience. I have a lot of skill set, especially working in these controversial areas and being a good listener and being respectful and empathetic and really working hard. Again, I feel like I have so much to learn, and if you elect me, then hopefully I can be another person that you're kind of helping to mold to be another person to move issues forward. And regardless of the outcome of the election, I have so much respect for the people I've met. They're like friends, and it's been so great to meet all of these people and my colleagues. And I know no matter who you elect, you'll be in good hands. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Healy. Okay, and we will now commence with roll call vote. Again, we are electing 2 candidates from our 3 candidates who are running, so Mehdi Farasat, Kristen Healy, and Kyla Kazuschyk. So when you are called, please give us 2 names, and those will be your 2 votes for the open positions. And we will turn it over to Secretary Osborne.
All right. Now you guys know the drill. So, Ali, Farasat, and Kazuschyk. Ariana, Farasat, and Healy. Baldridge, Farasat, and Healy. Biswas, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Boutwell, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Bruning, Art and Design. Chandler, Law Center. Chin, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Christofferson, Vet Med. Cobb, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Cook, Farasat, and Healy. Kramer, Vet Med. Dalzell, Healy, and Kazuschyk. DeWitt, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Diamond, Law Center. Ding, Farasat, and Healy. Doran, Farasat, and Kazuschyk. Ellis, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Farasat, Farasat, and Kazuschyk. Gaglio, Art and Design. Gibbons, Okay, Gibbons, abstain. Goodman. Okay, Goodman, Farasat, and Kazuschyk. Griffin. Griffin, HSS. Healy. Okay, Healy, Healy, Kazuschyk. Holt. Okay, Holt, Farasat, and Kazuschyk. Holteen. Holteen, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Jacquette. Jacquette, HSS. Kaiser. Kaiser Engineering. Kumar. Kumar Science. Lathan. Lathan VetMed. Ledette. Okay. Ledette, Farasat, and Healy. Lee in Science. Lee Science. Okay. Lee HSS. Okay. Lee Farasat and Kazuschyk. Lund. Lund, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Manthai. Manthai, Farasat, and Kazuschyk. Mariotti. Okay. Mariotti, Farasat, and Healy. Matthews. Matthews, Farasat, and Kazuschyk. Matza. Okay, Matza is Farasat and Kazuschyk. Mukhopadhyay. Mukhopadhyay, Coast Environment. Newcomer. Newcomer Science. Osborne Pass. Pagliarini. Okay. Pagliarini is Farasat and Healy. Peters Hill. Peters Hill, Farasat, and Healy. Pingree. Pingree is Healy and Kazuschyk. Sattaville. Sattaville Ag. Sauls. Sauls Science. Shergill. Shergill, Farasat, and Healy. Scott. Scott, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Snow. Okay. Snow, Farasat, and Healy. Springer. Springer is Healy and Kazuschyk. Stannard. Stannard is Farasat and Healy. Tiagi. Tiagi Engineering. Ulig. Ulig, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Unel. Unel, Farasat, and Healy. Van Boxtel. Van Boxtel. HSS. Waldron. Waldron, Farasat, and Healy. Williams. Williams, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Shu Engineering. Shu Engineering. Yang. Yang, Farasat, and Healy. Joe, Art and Design. Abstain. Okay, and then back to Osborne, Healy, and Kazuschyk. Is there anyone who didn't vote?
Okay, that concludes the roll call vote. Just give us 1 minute to tally and tabulate the tallies, and we will announce the winner. All right, we are highly transparent in our tabulation. So I am pleased to announce that Kristen Healy and Kyla Kazuschyk have been elected as the 2 members at large. Congratulations to you both. And I would just like to say I appreciate the participation of everyone who stood as a candidate. As I'm sure you can imagine, this is a bit nerve-wracking for those of us who are being voted on. And so I really appreciate people being willing to participate and go through the process. So thank you to all our candidates. And even if you weren't elected today, we still have plenty of opportunities that we can utilize your services. So please do remain in touch with us, and we look forward to working with you. That concludes the elections, and we are now moving on to our first piece of business. No, that is not the first piece of business. That's the end, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to it. So we will now move on to, why is my screen getting screwed up? Oh. There's something happening with my presentation. I can go to the first slide and not the last slide. Anyway, we have a separate presentation for you anyway, so that doesn't matter. I invite Associate Dean Calamia to come to the stage to present the proposed graduate certificate revisions from the Pinkie Gordon Lane Graduate School. That's it.
All right. So
Just working on the screen. Then.
yep, I think that's the other one I would switch. Yeah, so I just back to the other one. Yeah, perfect. Yep, just that one. Perfect. All righty. So I'm going to talk a little bit about graduate certificates and a proposed change, a very minor change to address an issue for some certificates that are focused on preparing teachers. And so grad certificates are these focused, condensed programs, often tied to professional licensure or further expertise. They're not often for those interested in pursuing further graduate education, master's degrees, PhDs, so on. Although you can do them in the context of another degree, that's not really how they're mostly used. Current policy, though, says that all graduate degrees, inclusive of graduate certificates, has to have half of the credit hours at a 7,000 level or above. Teaching certificates, which already exist on campus, don't typically have many, if any, 7,000 level courses as part of the certificate. They often instead have 4,000 graduate level and then 6,000 level courses. These include the graduate teaching certificate in mathematics for advanced secondary instruction, which prepares teachers to teach college level math topics, graduate certificate in history for advanced secondary and early college instruction. That 6,000 level of credit is a credit that is for and exclusively for teachers at the elementary, secondary, and junior college levels. So that's why the certificates have a lot of that particular credit. What this proposal does is makes very minor changes to the general catalog to say, that typically courses are at the 7,000 level or above, except adding a new sentence that graduate certificates can have their credit at 6,000 level or above, half of the required credit at 6,000 or above, which is still a graduate level of classification of credit. And it makes another small change later, similar around the 6,000 level. Importantly, it really doesn't have any effect on any other kind of certificate because that 6,000 level is just for teachers. And so it really doesn't change. A lot of your programs have graduate certificates. If they're not in teaching, this really has no effect. It's really just to clean up some kind of things that don't match for both approved and other certificates that are going through the process.
Okay, and this proposal was reported favorably out of the ASH committee, so we can proceed directly into discussion of the approval of the proposal. Any comments or questions for Associate Dean Calamia? Okay, hearing no comments or questions, we will proceed directly with the vote. So the motion is to approve the proposal relating to the graduate certificate revisions. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, the proposal is approved. Thank you very much, and we will proceed with the next proposal. Is this one?
Yep.
Okay, great.
All right, shifting gears, talking about accelerated master's degree programs. These are programs that allow undergrads to kind of get a head start on completing a master's degree at LSU while they're still in their bachelor's program. And because a limited number of credits as part of these programs count towards both programs, the undergraduate and graduate degree. These programs, technically any master's degree could be an accelerated master's. Most commonly, though, we see a lot of these in HSE, College of Engineering, also College of Business. Finance is actually probably one of the more popular ones. And then certain faculty reached out to the graduate school and some proposed changes to kind of breadthen the number of students we can include in these programs. And in particular, what they would like is to lower the minimum eligibility for this program, which is currently set at a 3.5 to a 3.0. Importantly, that would be at department discretion. So if you want to limit for your accelerated master's program, you want to stay at a 3.5, you would be able to do so, or anything between a 3.0 and a 3.5. But those programs, including the ones that have reached out to us, which would be education and engineering, would be allowed to set their threshold at 3.0. As you may have seen in the documents kind of submitted that went through ASH, this cutoff is pretty common in a lot of other institutions. There's some variability. Some schools have a 3.5, but many have a 3.0. A 3.0 is also consistent with what our minimum standard is for regular graduate admission. So that's already what GPA we look for to admit someone for graduate study. And the other part of the proposal clears up that 12 credit hours can count for the master's degree, regardless of the number of hours in that degree. It doesn't make any changes to anything else. So nothing about the approval process, which still routes through the department and the college and the grad school. Nothing about the minimum, meeting the minimum standards to then move into a master's degree program. Nothing about needing to get a B, which is what you need for graduate level credit. Doesn't make any changes to anything else but the GPA and the number of credit hours. And so this is that language which was shared with you that make that adjustment.
Okay, and this proposal was also reported favorably out of the ASH committee, so we can proceed immediately into discussion regarding the proposal to approve the accelerated degree program. Oh, sorry, if you can just please wait for the microphone. We need to receive the microphone. Just identify yourself for the recording and then proceed with your question.
Vanessa Ulig, I just wanted to confirm the 12 credits thing. That's lowered from 36.
No. This is the credits that can count towards both degrees, or the credits that you can put forward towards a master's degree. So right now, while you're an undergraduate student doing this accelerated master's program. Yep. So currently it's either 9 or 12, depending on the number of credit hours in a master's program. And this would just standardize it at 12 for any master's degree program. Kind of just aiming to simplify a little bit the process.
Thank you. And additional questions? Okay, hearing no additional questions, it appears that we are ready to proceed with the vote. So the vote is on the question of whether to approve the proposal. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say nay. All right, the proposal is approved, and thank you for joining us and presenting the materials. All right, we will proceed with our next piece of business, which is proposed revisions to Policy Statement 104, dismissal for cause for faculty, and this will be presented by Inessa Bazayev, a Faculty Senate Immediate Past President.
Hello, everyone. I'll just give you a quick update on something that has been going on for the past few years. So it's not changing. We just have to do it this way. Okay. Okay. So PS 104, a quick reminder of what it is, dismissal for cause. This policy statement covers serious deficiencies in performance, for example, related to PS 69, that's deficiency in research, misconduct in research, and PS 109. That can also include other serious university violations that would include Title IX related issues. So a few years ago, when I was elected to the Senate, Dan and I at the time in 2022-23, part of our first things that we did was to review some of the policies that pertain to faculty governance. And during the subsequent year in 23-24, Dan, myself, Olivier Mariteau at the Law Center, and John Snow from Science, who's here today, took on the task of revising PS 104 to make it more in par with other practices that were done at other universities that related to dismissal for cause. Following that, our revisions were then got to Faculty Senate Policy Committee, where at the time John Snow, I think, was the chair. And the committee comprised of myself, Dan, Michelle Osborne, Ravi Rao, Jeff Rowland, and John Snow. And we passed it out, we revised it further, and we passed it out of the committee, and we sent it to Office of Academic Affairs as our suggested revisions. Now, fast forward this past year, this policy committee, this document was thoroughly looked at by what I call the super committee, which was made up of, and still is, of academic affairs led by Jane Cassidy, ourselves, it's Dan, myself, and Param, then HRM and General Counsel's office. And we looked at this policy, and it was perhaps one of the most collaborative exercises that I've ever participated in, even as faculty senate president. It was truly a collaborative process and really was a model exercise in shared governance. And I am the reason why I wanted to show you this evolution is just to tell you how long it's taken for us to gather all of these stakeholders into a single room and really talk through some of the issues and how we can make this policy as efficient and as fair as it can be. So I think we arrived at a pretty good place, and we sent you the old document, which is now still the current PS 104 document. It hasn't changed just yet. And then the proposed changes that was featured are track changes that reflected in the super committee. So just very broad strokes. There are many other small changes throughout the document, but just kind of the quick summary of what to summarize for you the main difference between the two documents is that in the current policy of PS 104, when a complaint is filed against a faculty member, a confirmation review committee made up mostly of administration would decide whether that complaint is administrative in nature. Let's say you haven't been at work for a year and you're still collecting salary. That would be a administrative infraction, or academic if it has to do with some kind of research deficiency or anything related to academics. So that confirmation review or committee or CRC would then decide which route it would go. Now, in the past 4 years, all of these revisions I just showed you that went through different faculty and committees, we streamlined the process so that every complaint, regardless of its nature, administrative or academic, would go through a faculty review committee. So this is a very important improvement on the previous version. And the administrative review committee in the revised process would just look at the materials that were submitted by the complainer, most probably a dean or someone in that stature, and would just determine if there is enough evidence for this to proceed. Before we didn't have that, you could just go on and in either of those routes. So it's a very efficient process. So whoever is complaining, filing the complaint, would have to have enough evidence and submit a pretty hefty file for this process to kick in. Now, the revised process is fairer. And in the revised process, administration carries the burden of making the case against the faculty member. All cases, regardless of their nature, will be heard by the faculty review committee. And this revision is in par with AAUP's dismissal proceedings outlined in the Red Book, pages 91 through 93. So the next steps is for us. What does it mean for us? Well, the Faculty Senate does not control PS 104 or have any authority over it. We can collect comments or suggestions from you today and pass it to the super committee. In fact, we're meeting on Friday. However, I think it would be a nice gesture to endorse it by voting for it today. So I'm going to stop. I don't know if I can take questions, or Dan, how would you like to?
Well, so I believe Professor Baldridge has a motion he would like to make related to this piece of business. And so if we could please provide Professor Baldridge with a microphone.
I move to endorse this revision as written. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Baldridge. Is there a second to the motion to endorse the proposed revisions to PS 104? Thank you. Okay, we will now enter into discussion. As Anessa pointed out, we do not control this, so essentially our endorsement is a signal to the Chancellor, who is the ultimate decision maker, that the faculty would support these changes as written, as he is considering whether to approve the potential policy changes or not. Given that this has been an effort that has been undertaken by multiple stakeholders, any significant changes that we make would have to be redistributed among the other groups and could extend the review process, so please do keep that in mind. However, if there were significant issues that someone wanted to pass along, right, or amend the endorsement to say endorse conditional on a substantive change to be considered by those other stakeholders, we could do that as well. So the current motion is for endorsement of the revised PS 104 document, and we will now enter into discussion. Yes, and if you could please just wait for the microphone and state your name and then proceed with your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali, Engineering. I appreciate the effort. And I was just for clarification, who forms the faculty review committee? Because who has the power to form it?
Yeah, so
But it's already there.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Faculty Review Committee is drawn from the appeals, from the pool of appeals board. So it's just a pool of faculty members. It's controlled by the Faculty Senate. And so those people we have, it's similar to the old version. It still is the same. That was always, those faculty members are drawn from that pool of faculty that were voted on, right? I think it's voted on by the, sorry, go ahead.
So the Faculty Appeals Board is the body that we have established, which is populated by full professors to be drawn from when there's a PS 104 case. From that body, names will be advanced to the Chancellor's office. The Chancellor will then select from that pool that is advanced by the Senate the individuals the Chancellor would like to appoint to the committee. The faculty member who is undergoing the PS 104 process and also the complainant would have the opportunity to challenge for cause the appointment of any of those individuals. And individuals from the same unit as the person who is undergoing the PS 104 would be precluded from participation. So that's generally the process by which the PS 104 Faculty Review Committee would be put together.
And I should add that that committee is comprised of 5 or 7 members. And I want to take this moment, I forgot to mention this earlier, and plug in, please volunteer to serve in that pool of people on the appeals board, because this PS 104 is as important as PS 36T and NT. I mean, I know it's not a happy a committee to serve on, but I think we all have that responsibility to be to do that duty to our fellow faculty members who are going through this process. And it's been really difficult this past year to actually pull people to serve on these committees. I really want to urge you to do your duty, and at least once in your lifetime at LSU, really volunteer to avail yourself to be on this committee.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Dr. Baldridge. And then.
Hi, Scott Baldridge with Math. I would just like to say that I went through it carefully, and what I like about the revision is that it spells out the policies in a much clearer way. So you know, it makes it much more like you're following a process than in the old P104. So PS 104. So just my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
I don't know if it's an elephant in the room, but I just wanted to say this is a really good thing for LSU, because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, it heals one of the 2 major problems that's still keeping us on the AAUP censure list, and is an obstacle to us getting off of it, which I think would be a good thing for everybody. That's what I have to say.
This has been part of those discussions. It is not the singular piece, but it is part of the package. Additional questions or comments? Okay, it appears we are ready to proceed with a vote. So a vote is on the motion to endorse the revisions to PS 104 as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Thank you. Any opposed, please say nay. All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you to Vanessa for the presentation. Okay, so our next piece of business is Faculty Senate Resolution 2501, Grammarly licenses for students without generative AI. A little bit of history on this resolution. This was initially proposed in February of 2025, which is why it is numbered as 2501. At that time, it was referred to the Faculty Senate Generative AI Committee for review, and we asked that committee to please consider the resolution and come back to the Senate with a recommendation. The committee has now concluded their review. They are ready to present the results of their deliberations. That is included in the next agenda item. So in order that we may hear the committee recommendations first, would there be a motion to suspend the agenda and take up the presentation on FSGAI Committee's recommendations regarding Grammarly as our next piece of business? All right, thank you, Ingmar. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. All right, thank you. The motion passes, and we are now going to proceed with the presentations on FSGAI Committee's recommendations regarding Grammarly as our next piece of business, and this will be presented by Committee Chair Param Singh.
Oh, thank you, everyone. I would like to request my committee members who are in the room to please come on the front. I don't want to take all the heat myself, so. Okay, I'm Param Singh. I'm chair of the Faculty Senate Generative AI Committee. I'm joined with my very esteemed colleagues. Like, the committee is very large. These are just one fraction of them. So I will continue with my presentation. And this presentation is essentially a summary of what the committee has reached any recommendation on the use of Grammarly for students and whether LSU should provide an institutional license for Grammarly for students. So the committee membership is on the screen right now. Like, it consists of many members from different areas: HSS, architecture, LSU libraries, engineering, law, finance, vet med, and also, like, I'm from science and information studies, petroleum engineering. So it has a very, very diverse group. And as a chair, it was really a learning experience. I've chaired many committees, but this was the one I loved most because no one let me speak anything, and people were just debating all the topics about generative AI guidelines and the Grammarly and so on. There were many, many healthy debates, very, very collegial committee, and I'm really proud of chairing this committee. So let us go to the background. The charge which was given to this committee was to recommend guidelines on the use of generative AI for LSU faculty and students and to explore necessary revisions to LSU's academic and other applicable policies. In particular, in February 2025, pursuant to Resolution 2501, which will be discussed next after this presentation, this Senate asked the Generative AI Committee to advise on whether LSU should provide institutional Grammarly licenses for students. We discussed this topic for various months. This was just part of the agenda for many meetings. My main task of the committee was to draft guidelines for curriculum and research, and we drafted those guidelines in October last year. They were passed by the Senate in December, and they were adopted by LSU leadership. We are working on the research guidelines, but at the back burner, there was always the Grammarly on discussion. I gave the opportunity in every meeting possible. We should discuss Grammarly, try to come to some consensus. And in the last meeting, in the meeting last week, we presented the following options. We're thinking from both sides. So the next two slides will present the Grammarly as a yes case versus the no case.
This does not demonstrate my personal feelings, but for the yes case, students access Grammarly's AI features today through personal free accounts. Doing nothing is not a neutral choice. So essentially, they're already using it. And so if we have some kind of control over it, that's better than not. Institutional licensing would give LSU admin controls to disable generative features by default, consistent with the guidelines that we approve here. Institutional accounts protect student data, whereas free tier accounts allow Grammarly to use content for model training. And this was one of the kind of sticking points that people argued. And the non-generative features, grammar, clarity, and spelling, remain fully available, supporting international students and students with disabilities. And so this was another point, because we know that a lot of international students rely on Grammarly to help their writing.
Okay, for no case, it can be summarized into five. The first one was the economics do not justify the cost and better options are available because there are many AI tools nowadays, and conflicts with code academic principles. And the free tier already provides the non-generative features unless you would be licensing. And approving this would set a precedent for every vendor with a mixed AI product to make the same case. The last one was the Faculty Senate GAI guidelines already govern Grammarly's generative features under faculty course policy. So no license is needed to enforce guidelines.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. And the recommendation of the committee after a very thorough discussion was that this committee does not recommend LSU purchase institutional Grammarly licenses for students. And in all transparency, I have listed the recorded vote, which was to recommend approval, 6 against, 2 in favor. I cannot tell who voted against or in favor, but I can tell I abstained as a chair, as a good chair. So I will end here and I will welcome any questions.
If we can, perhaps we can handle questions in the discussion of the resolution. So I'm sure the committee members would be willing to participate in that portion. So thank you very much for the work you've done. I know this was a heavy lift and we appreciate your service on the committee. We will now proceed with the regular agenda, which brings us back to consideration of the resolution 2501. And Secretary Osborne, since it's been a while since we've seen this, is going to read the resolution into the record for us.
Faculty Senate Resolution 2501, Grammarly licenses for students without generative AI, sponsored by the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. Whereas LSU student government has requested that the student technology fee be used to purchase Grammarly licenses for students. Whereas Grammarly is advertised as, quote, actually the original AI assistant, one that's provided AI-powered suggestions to users for the past 15 years, end quote. Whereas Grammarly is acquiring Coda, quote, the maker of trailblazing and powerful AI productivity tools Coda Docs and Coda Brain, end quote. Whereas LSU has not established policies governing the use of generative AI by students, faculty, and staff. Whereas students at both the undergraduate and graduate levels engage in academic research and publish manuscripts where Grammarly may be used. Whereas various journals have made policies on the way AI can be and cannot be used. Whereas the pros and cons of AI are hotly debated by faculty across the nation, and the Faculty Technology Survey at LSU A&M showed that a large majority of faculty have various concerns about AI. Whereas the Faculty Senate Executive Committee has formed an ad hoc committee on AI and academic policies to recommend changes to LSU's academic policies to uphold academic integrity. And whereas the Joint Faculty Senate Office of Academic Affairs Committee on Grammarly has completed its work and issued recommendations for best practices in the use of Grammarly in instruction, therefore be it resolved that the LSU Faculty Senate does not oppose the use of the student technology fee to purchase Grammarly licenses for all students without any generative AI capabilities. Resolved that every faculty member will have the exclusive right to forbid the use of Grammarly by students involved in education and research. Resolved that instructors should clearly communicate course or assignment-specific policies on the use of Grammarly to students in written form, and resolved that enabling the generative AI capabilities of Grammarly for all students will require an approval of the Faculty Senate.
Thank you. And the original motion was introduced by the Faculty Senate Executive Committee to approve the resolution. We have now received the report of the Faculty Senate Generative AI Committee. This was originally read in our February 25 meeting, and so this constitutes the second reading of the resolution as it was carried over by the FSGAI Committee between sessions. And so we are ready to proceed with discussion and potentially a final vote on the resolution today. And so at this point, we will open up the floor to discussion on the motion to approve Resolution 2501. Any comments or discussion? Yes, and Dr. Baldridge, if you would just wait for the microphone, please.
Scott Baldridge, sorry, I need a glass of water. Scott Baldridge in math. It's just a question. So when you voted against, were you voting against this resolution? I'm a little confused as to what the committee.
So at that point, we weren't really thinking of the resolution per se. What we were basically discussing was whether or not it would be a good use of funds to purchase Grammarly for students. So that's what we voted on, yes or no, for purchasing for all students.
Because there's some things in there that we might want to say yes to, but did the committee look at something like Glean, which now allows us to keep the information in-house so that we can, like you can have it look at your emails without it worrying about it violating any of the IT policies?
So Glean, so at the moment, Glean is not available to students, even doctoral students. Like unless a doctoral student is doing research in AI, only then exceptional Green license can be given. We are looking at two different things. One is Grammarly, which was 2 years ago, without so dominant generative AI capabilities, and one of things like Copilot and so on, which will probably just completely drown Grammarly as well as the GAI is concerned. But the question here was, when there are other writing tools available which do not have prominent GAI built in, then should we support Grammarly, which is being pushed by a vendor, or we should look at other tools and so on? The committee was not charged to look at alternatives. I think that is in purview of ITS and Office of Academic Affairs, but the committee understands that there are various tools available which can help far more than Grammarly without generative AI capabilities, which LSU should look into. So the committee tried to look at all kind of issues with generative AI, without generative AI. There was also, I won't say like full consensus, but like if there was a vote, like people would have voted that professional schools probably can have Grammarly with or without generative AI. But the question was about institutional licenses, and that is where faculty who are teaching introductory courses and especially in languages and so on, there were enough concerns expressed, and the committee also welcomed stakeholders from different departments to have open discussions beyond the committee, and this was what the decision was reached.
And just a point of clarification, the reason this is focused so explicitly on Grammarly is that was the question that student government essentially brought to the administration, because they had wanted to use the student technology fee specifically for Grammarly. And so when they came to us, they asked us that specific question, but the committee was not charged with looking at alternatives. And so that's why really the discussion has focused on that specific software. Additional questions or comments? Yes, Dr. Cook.
I'm very torn on this. One, I agree, I don't want AI. Part of what we're trying to do is teach students how to write themselves and also do that mental exercise, which I think is very, very important, especially part of what later on in life, even in our real life, we have to learn how to express. When somebody in the family passes, you have to learn how to be able to talk to somebody at a funeral and everything. If they don't have that training early on, that's one. Academically, we have the same thing. The only thing I worry about is going to be creating a two-tier system at LSU. Those that can pay for Grammarly as individual licenses and use it, and we can't track them. This is a problem. Students, I think it's $30. I don't know how much is that per month, per quarter. I'm not sure, where that includes AI, all those tool sets. So students that can pay for that will have that. Others that can't. And I don't know how I think we cannot keep up with whether students using it privately AI or not when they write for us. It's becoming where we cannot catch the cheaters. So this is why I don't like the idea, but I do like the idea of possibly having Grammarly where there is, how should we put it, AI not being allowed to be used. And we basically ask students they have to do that and hand it in that way. And then we can basically track that to try bridging that. I'm not sure if I'm making this perfectly clear, but I worry there's going to be a two-tier system. Students that basically are economically challenged, but taking the challenge to go to university to improve themselves, will be punished by students that can afford this. And if we basically give the students AI through ours and we go, if you're writing an assignment, we want it to go through our site license through AI, that allows us to control that. That would be my one thing. I really don't like the fact that we're having to pay for another thing and pay for licenses and everything, where it should be just a skill that they should have from high school. Except for foreign students, people with disabilities, I fully agree there, but not for a normal student. They have to learn how to be able to write in their native language.
So if I can speak to that for just a second, we did discuss the question of equity, equality, and accessibility, the questions, multiple. And one of the things that came up was, there are many, many things that students with economic challenges face. We cannot resolve them all. So some students drive Lexuses to campus and some cannot pay for parking. And, that like LSU is not going to issue cars. So this, I realize that's a kind of cheap analogy, but we, in discussion, decided that it is not, that we do not feel it's up to LSU to provide a means for any student at all to produce perfect writing that doesn't say anything. And that's my, this does represent my feeling on generative AI, that it is, it's perfect English with tons of jargon that doesn't mean anything. So, voila, that's what I have to say.
And if I can just provide another piece of additional background from conversations with academic affairs, these are funds that the students control through the student technology fee. So a large part of our charge is to look at that in terms of the impact it will have on educational policy and education on campus. To a lesser degree, right, the charge about the adequate use or the optimal use of student funds in technology is a worth conversation having with the student technology group that covers this. But these are their funds, right? And so the reason it came to us is because it could impact and will impact instruction, right? So that is really the focus that we were asked to look at in the Senate, although I think the point is well taken. Having conversations with them, I think there are recommendations people would have about one set of software versus another. I just wanted to sort of help provide that additional information.
Okay. Charles Delzell here from the math department. I'm concerned only with one part of it here. The instructors should communicate their policies on the use of Grammarly. Okay, so we do that, but we don't have to communicate our policy on ChatGPT or some other things. And this comes a little bit into conflict with the academic affairs webpage concerning syllabi. I mean, here the resolution does not say you have to add this to your syllabus, which is already overburdened with policies and legal statements, but maybe you put it somewhere else, maybe an appendix to your syllabus or something. But already the website of the academic affairs says you're recommended to include in your syllabus a statement on permissible use of generative AI and prohibited use of generative AI. And so now we've got to do that, and we have to put a statement on Grammarly, and then someday maybe ChatGPT and all the other programs that are available. It gets to be a nuisance. And I remember some faculty member 20 years ago, 10 years ago in the faculty senate, he said, every time the Senate meets, my syllabus gets longer. And that's because we keep adding more statements, and they all have to be in the syllabus. They cannot be in some website. They can't be in the catalog. No, they have to be in the syllabus. Now, sometimes it's necessary because each faculty member does slightly differently, but here I'm sort of digressing maybe, and what's the word for complaining, that the academic affairs website lists 15 statements, 15 legal documents that you must put into your syllabus already. Sexual harassment, LSU Cares, and you could list them all, find them yourself. And now also that you must say academic continuity plan, as if that's not already stated somewhere else in the catalog. No, we have to have it in the syllabus also. So here too, that's my my gripe, I guess, is that the syllabus is too long. I remember when I was a student, the professor gave me a syllabus and it was just 3 or 4 sentences, and it said, we will cover chapters 1 through 5 of this particular textbook. And maybe he said there'll be a couple of tests, something like that. But now it's too much. That's my objection.
I can probably speak a little bit to why we specifically did not endorse Grammarly in the vote. I cannot specifically speak to the resolution. But I think Grammarly is kind of a discussion that started at a time when it didn't have AI,
by default for the free version, and now it does. And I think like we also see a lot more AI tools out there, and I'm not sure that Grammarly is really the frontier that we're trying to fight here, or the line that we try to hold here. So I think it's just like a function of that things have moved on beyond Grammarly. I think like there's Copilot that we will likely very see soon in all the Office products. So all the Office products will include AI, and I think really this is where we have to focus our attention to. So I think there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's all those tools, Quillbot, you name it, right? So Grammarly is a side, we just, like at least my perspective is that it's a sideshow and it has moved on.
Just to respond to your question about syllabi, Charles, on my syllabus, I include Grammarly in my statement about generative AI. So, you may not use generative AI tools, including ChatGPT, Copilot, Grammarly, etc.
Thanks, Vanessa. I wanted to echo what is being said about this because it feels like a pretty important moment and specific thing to make university wide or to bring to the fore in that way. And it just feels like anything other than a objection to this or opposition to this will be seen as an endorsement of AI by students. And are we ready to do that? Even if all the nuance and caveats that we in this room understand aren't as obvious to the whole community. We'll be entering into that. And then also entering the fray of like which vendor and what that feels like we're not ready to be able to keep up with it by naming this so specifically.
Yeah, I think messaging was very much a part of the discussions that we had. So I think that many of us are not opponents of AI necessarily, but I think we value the viewpoints of those who cannot tolerate AI in their courses, right? So I think once we endorse AI across the across the campus, right, then we take away some, I guess, autonomy of faculty that they must have, right? So, and I think from that perspective, whatever we voted on is already covered by the previous recommendation that we developed. And those recommendations basically govern everything that pertains to this, basically superseded by that.
And following up on that, one of our discussions was that a lot of the people that are very concerned about having AI Grammarly used in their classrooms are often instructor level faculty that don't have protections of tenure. And so saying that Grammarly is available for all and then them saying, you can't use it in my class is then going to put them in a precarious position when it comes time for annual evaluations. And so that was something that we really considered. We talked to several instructors that had the concern of being put in that spot where they really can't say no to it, even though their pedagogical experience says that they shouldn't do it.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments?
I just wanted to follow up on Michelle's
Oh,
comment, but that's okay. I'm invisible back here. But that part of the messaging discussion was also about what LSU says and how that gets interpreted by other educational institutions in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, et cetera. So like, do we want high school students to see that LSU allows generative AI and say, oh, well, I don't need to worry about this composition paper. I don't. So, my students already come in with writing deficits and critical reading deficits, and those are not going to be helped by having something else do the writing for them. So we don't want to send that message. And then it goes all the way down to elementary school and beyond.
Any additional discussion?
Hi, David Cohn. Just want to be sure I understand this. So the resolution is that we don't oppose it. I mean, that seems like doesn't seem like much of a stand. So I'm trying to figure out, so seems like the stand that someone might want to make is that we approve the use of Grammarly as long as it doesn't have generative AI. And this is supposed to be kind of a step in direction of sort of walling off AI. I'm not really, so I'm not sure what the implications, whether this passes or not, have much real world effect. So I just kind of trying to understand what are some of the motivations academically.
So let me try to clarify. So the committee was charged to give opinion on the use of Grammarly, whether LSU should be buying institutional licenses for all students for Grammarly. The problem is now Grammarly comes by default with the option of generative AI. If institution buys those licenses, there are pros for that. Like there will be data protection, like compliance. There will be no, they won't be feeding the data outside to LLMs and so on. But we have to switch off those options according to this resolution and then pay, but at the same time also pay for the generative AI license to Grammarly. So we are paying for something we are never going to use. So that was a cost factor. So the resolution is actually what I would say like slightly out of date, because like the guidelines which were developed in December already covered many things. And if the resolution is adopted, it would say Grammarly can be used without generative AI, but maybe the amendment can be LSU is not recommended to buy those licenses. That will be consistent with the ground reality right now.
Yeah, and just again, to give additional background information on this, the main thrust of this was to speak to the question of whether the faculty would support the use of the student technology fee in this way. So the resolution was originally written to say does not oppose, but originally said support. That was amended in the February meeting, actually by Senator Dalzell, to say, I know I was surprised too. I had to go back and read the minutes. To substitute does not oppose for support, which kind of weakened that language. It is still permissive. Right, it's a permissive signal to the administration to allow the students to use the student technology fee. The other resolved clauses were essentially then conditional on, right, if we don't object to the use of the funds for these reasons, these are the other considerations we would want to see to go along with that. But that was sort of the original structure and purpose of the resolution, although again, it's been with the GAI committee for some time now, so circumstances have changed somewhat around it. No, absolutely. Yes. Cook and then Ulick.
Okay. I basically forget where I was watching it, but basically somebody very high-end base said the only way we're going to get around AI is to basically go back to blue books tests. I mean, at the moment, Grammarly is well behind others that are free. Our students are going to use them. We know that AI is catching up so quickly. We can't keep track of this. So for me, it's like I'm very torn on this. I don't like the fact that we're even saying our students should be using AI at the moment because it's going to be an endorsement. And then where do we draw the line? It creates a very, very slippery slope. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Where do we draw the line? If we're basically making them pay for something they're not using, this is a terrible business practice to teach them to do this for other things. That's why I'm opposed to this. And I also think that there has to be a major discussion and a strong discussion with the administration about giving us the resources to be able to go back to pen and paper testing and basically giving us the resource to be able to mark that, because it's the only way around this. We cannot catch it. Filters that said they can catch AI are failing left, right, and center. It's actually learning from those filters and actually outsmarting those filters now. So this is one of those things, and I agree, there's no creativity behind this. And that's what we want our students to do. Creativity, independent think, and understand why they've come up to that, not, well, the computer told me, and yeah. So I really don't know where we can go here. And I'm worried that wherever we discuss, we're already behind whatever's happening. Once we discuss it, we're already behind like the federal government with tech.
So maybe if I can try to give a bigger picture. So the guidelines, they clearly specify each instructor designs his or her own style of instruction, whether to allow generative AI or to not. That is not the question. That is completely under academic freedom. That has been already decided in guidelines. The problem with the software like Grammarly is that once the institutional license is taken with generative AI, if they switch off for all students. ITS cannot do selective switching off and on for students. And even if they do it for something, there are still lots of structural gaps there that some faculty will complain. There are already alternatives to Grammarly. Forget about generative AI tools like Copilot and so on, which are non-generative AI, which can be hosted in the institution, which are designed towards academic writing, where the institution can have more control. So the suggestion of the committee would be that ITS and Office of Academic Affairs should probe those tools, which are more student-friendly, faculty-friendly, which do not have generative AI built into it. They are much cheaper. And I think much of the concern about whether we need a tool like Grammarly will be resolved. So we also have to understand that why Grammarly? Grammarly is a very aggressive vendor. Like it goes on through the high schools, to colleges, and so on. And one of the committee members just voted against because about the vendorship issues and so on. So I think there are other alternatives. This issue is kind of obsolete, I would say, like as have been reflected by many committee members. And the point is that if the student tech fee is to be used efficiently for such a tool, one should explore those alternatives and then decide about it.
Ulig and then Ali.
Thanks. Just for clarity though, if we don't pass this, then we do not oppose. Wait, like what happens if we agree that it's bad in here?
So then the question returns to academic affairs without a Senate position on the use of the student technology fee for this position. So that'll be a question that then would go back to academic affairs for their decision. If they decide that because of the discussion that has occurred here, right, that they just, they don't think that the sentiment of the faculty, in the absence of this resolution would support this, then I believe they work it out with the student government. But this will essentially return the question to academic affairs without input by the Senate, because we will not have adopted a position either way, essentially, if we don't approve this.
Dan, can we amend the first resolved that's showing up there to say we oppose the use of the student technology fee to purchase Grammarly licenses for all students with generative AI capabilities, and just turn the negatives around?
I believe that would be out of order, because a no vote on that would essentially do the same thing as the amendment to say no. So you can't duplicate something that if I vote down the resolution, essentially going through the amendment process to get to that same outcome as a motion or as a vote on the main motion or the resolution. So I believe that would be out of order, just because it would duplicate what a no vote would do, right? Because it's essentially setting a permissive structure, and we would fail to set that permissive structure. Now, it could be, we would say we are more negative about it, right? But yes, Scott. Oh, I'm sorry, Ali and then Baldridge.
It's in 5 years, it's in 10 years. The whole development now is based on the interaction between the human brain and this AI as a companion, as a tool for revolutions, for advancement of everything. What we are behind on is we are still using the old fashion of teaching. We need to develop our courses, our curriculum to live where the future will be. This takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of energy on us, but this is where we should be teaching our students to be. I fully understand it's different fields. Maybe this is more in science and engineering, they love this. Maybe in literature and other things we need to, there could be policies where to put the bar. But another big issue is the student may go to the back door, which is use whatever it is, especially those who are doing research, and leaking our results, and leaking a lot of knowledge we have there we didn't even publish. So I liked when you said we have Grammarly, it helps the student with writing and all of that, all right, when they put the bullet points. But there is something, the data is not used for training. I like that point. So if we were looking for an alternative, we have to keep that in mind. And keep in mind, it's open now, the internet is open for everyone, and they are getting there regardless. Thank you.
Thank you. Baldridge and then Bowell.
So Scott Baldridge in math. If we vote, this feels really out of date. Can we invite the committee to come up with a resolution that we can vote on?
Okay,
Would that
so
be possible?
I think this is a discussion that we just had right this moment, because I think as phrased, this resolution doesn't reflect the actual vote of the committee. And I think there wasn't time to kind of, I don't know. I think the process means that we need to amend this to actually reflect this. So I think if there is the sentiment that this should be phrased in the negative, that the faculty senate rejects the use of Grammarly, then I think this would be a clear vote.
We just come back with another resolution in the fall that is something that really follows with what we're talking about here. And then we're actually giving feedback or information that would be valuable.
So a few procedural points on that, right? So this is the last meeting of this session.
Yes, I know.
So if we don't take action on this today, this will essentially be, dissolved in the ether. That does not preclude anyone who is interested from bringing back a similar resolution on a similar topic next year. A no vote today, if that is the determination, would not preclude someone from bringing a resolution next year as well. So, we could refer back to the committee. The committee's had it a long time. They've done a lot of hard work. And given that, giving it to the committee kind of locks us into this structure. If people think this structure is obsolete, but there's opportunity for improvement, it might be better to start afresh if that is the sentiment that somebody may have, speaking to kind of the point that you raised. So the options as they face us today, because we really can't postpone it either, are either an up or down vote, or we simply table it, it dies of its own volition, and then essentially it just never happened because we never sort of took a position on it. Those are sort of the procedural options. We could refer to committee. I think there's a number of reasons why that would be less than ideal.
From what I understand is it's actually possible to say just I move to amend this.
Yeah, that's also a possibility.
To phrase this in the negative, basically to say that we reject.
He has put a motion forward to amend the resolution to convert it to a negative to reject Grammarly.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, do we think that would be out of order? And I'm asking you because I'm not entirely certain. Do we think that would be out of order because a no vote on the main motion would essentially achieve the same objective as saying we don't permit Grammarly? Or
a no vote on the main motion would actually mean the same thing.
Right. So if a no vote on the main motion means the same thing as the amendment is out of order because it would achieve the same outcome as the main vote, which was kind of to Rosemary's point earlier.
But we can still make an amendment to make it a positive vote on the no motion. But it's up to you.
No, I mean we.
So in to clarify, if we vote no to this, it will reject Grammarly. But there is already a motion on the floor to amend it so that to just clarify that this resolution will be a no, and then if we vote yes to it, it will be rejected. So
there. Okay. I mean, so there is a motion to amend by Shogul. Is there a second on the motion to amend? Okay. Yeah. So.
Okay, I can't read from my angle, and I think those ad hoc amendments are sometimes difficult to phrase, but resolves that this LSU Faculty Senate opposes the use of the student technology fee to purchase.
Sure. So the motion by Shogul is to strike does not oppose and insert reject. And right?
Opposes, yeah.
No. Okay, so.
Sorry, I can't find the little line on PDF, but
So we're striking does not and just leaving opposes.
Yes.
Okay. No. Okay, no, I mean.
I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion on the floor by Shogul. What's that?
Opposes without or opposes with?
Yeah, the italics now are confusing.
Yeah.
Without.
Right.
Yeah.
Would have just voted down. So okay, so the amendment is to strike does not, and then everything after students. So it would read, if the proposed amendment, the end result of the proposed amendment with the striking does not and everything after students, that the LSU Faculty Senate opposes the use of the student technology fee to purchase Grammarly licenses for all students. If the motion is successful, that will be the language that goes into the resolution. Is there a second to that amendment? Okay, so I have Cook as a second. We will now enter into discussion on the amendment to strike does not and everything after the term students. In that sentence. In that sentence. Chip.
Do I need a microphone?
Yes. Just for posterity, because we're recording.
This will now clash with the next resolve, which says every faculty can forbid it, when we have already basically forbidden it by our Senate. It sounds a little, what's the word, schizophrenic.
So Professor Delzel, it does not.
Okay.
With that.
Okay.
The students can still use their private licenses for Grammarly. The previous point is student technology fee. A student can have Grammarly like free software or something, and then it's up to the faculty member to decide to forbid it or not.
And secondly, since you all have studied this topic and I have not, I'm happy to defer to your committee or your majority or whatever. And I just wondered, what has your committee reached a consensus? Like, do you want to do the amendment and vote yes on the amendment or on the whole resolution? Or
Committee did its work. Committee presented its conclusion. Senator Shogel has his own rights as a senator to introduce an amendment.
But what do you advocate? You as a committee, do you have any?
The committee recommends that LSU should not provide institutional licenses for Grammarly for students.
Oh, well, I can find that.
The fourth resolution.
Sorry, we can give him a microphone.
Paul Mehdi, said, the fourth resolution is no longer relevant because we're opposing the use. So we wouldn't need to vote on approval for something that we've already rejected.
Or you can amend the amendment. So there can be a motion to amend the amendment to strike the language as struck here and also add in add in additional language to strike the fourth resolved.
Strike. That's a moot point.
Okay.
Once you oppose the use of it, you don't need the fourth resolution.
So there was a motion to amend the amendment that would also amend the amendment to now strike also the fourth resolved clause of the resolution. Is there a second for the motion to amend the amendment? Is that a second or a comment? All right, I have a second. We will enter discussion on the motion to amend the amendment.
Call for a vote.
Oh, why don't we just put this simply? Do we agree with what's on the screen now, which is, as far as I understand, the amendment to the amendment, all that put in the base package is now what's on the screen?
Senate.
Yeah, but I took this expensive parliamentary procedure course. I gotta be able to use it, Robert. So okay, so I hear no further discussion on the motion to amend the amendment, unless John, you want to weigh in? Yeah. Okay, so we are calling the previous question, which is on the motion to amend the amendment. So all those in favor of amending the proposed amendment to not only strike does not, and then the without any generative AI capabilities. If the amendment to the amendment passes, we would add to that striking the fourth resolved clause. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Didn't think so. All right, so now we return to the discussion of the amendment. The amendment is now to strike does not and without any generative AI capabilities along with the resolved clause. Any further discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing no further discussion on the motion to amend, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Thank you. Any opposed? All right, so now we return to our consider the main motion, which is the approval of the amended resolution, which now reads in the first resolve clause that the LSU Faculty Senate opposes the use of the student technology fee to purchase Grammarly licenses for all students. It retains the second and third resolve clauses and strikes the fourth resolve clauses, which is now in red line. Any further discussion on the main motion to approve the amended resolution? All right, hearing no further discussion, we will proceed with the vote. The vote is on to approve the amended resolution as it is presented here. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion is successful. The resolution as amended is passed. Thank you very much, and thank you to the Generative AI Committee for all of your work. Sure. Yeah. Do you have the individuals who made the motions?
They'll be recorded.
Okay. And yet, there's more. So that concludes our business, but we do have one presentation. And I would invite Michael Collar to please join me at the lectern. And he will present on the Faculty Senate Courses and Curricula Committee.
Good afternoon. I'm the microphone, but I'm going to kind of project. I've given some. Okay, sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Collar. I'm a faculty member in the College of Agriculture. Today's meeting has been lengthy with lots of discussion. So I'm going to give you the quick version and hopefully address some of the points you brought up with my last slide. All right. So I've had the privilege to serve as the chair of the Faculty Senate Courses and Curricula Committee for this last 2 academic years. Hopefully not a third. I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble finding a volunteer. It is a lot of work, and you'll see why as we get a little further along to be the chair. But I've really enjoyed my service on the committee. I've enjoyed my fellow committee members tremendously. I've learned a ton about this university that I did not know. And that is a bonus of being on the committee. So I want to remind you that on the Academic Affairs website and the Faculty Senate website, we have similar information on our charges, which is to be student and faculty centric. The real purpose and mission of this committee is to ensure a process for students to complete courses and degrees and for faculty to have the opportunity to teach discipline-specific courses that benefit the university, the student population, the community, the state, and the international community. That's the goal of this committee. What happens, though, is we get bogged down in a lot of procedure because we'll get into, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. But I'm going to bring up several times during this presentation that we have a proposal checklist and a syllabus template that were designed by this committee over the last 2 years to streamline the process and to anticipate. We saw common problems that were appearing across proposals, and we came up with some points to let you know, is my proposal going to review well? Moving forward, the general process that we follow is still using the 2 systems. We are still clearing systems that were submitted under the old paper format with the PDFs. They're still making their way through the process, but we have largely switched over to a majority of proposals coming through the modern campus. So what happens is, as chair, prior to a meeting, I build an agenda of approximately 40 proposals. This is what we have determined we can get through per meeting. The priority of those proposals is in part based on order of submission, which is, I think, I've been on both sides of this. I've been an originator, I've been a college committee chair, college committee member. I assumed, as many of you probably do, that proposals are reviewed on the order of submission, but that is not always the case. Proposals can be fast-tracked if accreditation, licensure, or certification is in question. So every time our state board of secondary education and higher education passes new requirements, and they do this a lot, we have to fast-track those proposals or our student teachers can't get jobs. So this does push other very deserving proposals out of order, but it's something we do, again, to be student-centric and to be faculty-centric and to make sure our students have outcomes. So in our old system followed this general process. The originator submitted a proposal, it went to their department, it went to their college, it went to the Office of the University Registrar and Office of Institutional Effectiveness. Then it came to the Faculty Senate Courses and Curricula Committee. And so one of the things that slowed it down, in addition to the volume of proposals that we handle, is that there are gaps in time between when a proposal would be submitted, a department would look at it, a college would look at it, it would get in the queue. And so that is something that was also often invisible to us as faculty originators because there was no way to track it. But with Modern Campus, the process is much more streamlined and you can see the entire process. And I know that the Modern Campus software has been shown in this committee meeting, so I don't want to waste your time showing it again. But notice that this last difference. As soon as we make a decision and I have a chance to get back to my computer answer the 400 emails that show up and all the other stuff we have to do. I will log in and you'll get an answer. And that is a much more streamlined and positive benefit compared to the previous system where Office of University Registrar would email whoever the point of contact is for your college. That point of contact, who also has a full-time job, would then email you. And so there would always be these delays. There's a much quicker turnaround time. So the guiding principles, and I struggled a little bit to name this slide, but these are the policy statements, rules, and procedures that guide what we look for in proposals. So PS22, you're all familiar with. This is where the content on makeups and dealing with excused absences occur. And PS22 does allow for non-makeups. If you're giving a lab practical like I do in aquatic entomology, I can't always redo that for there's a bunch of students trying to make it up, but I can give them something else to do. And that is and that's totally covered in PS22. PS29 covers most syllabus components, and it is woefully out of date. And here's where I think I can help us all out. We are talking about revising PS29 to have statements like, and all other requirements recommended by academic affairs may be linked. Because we also don't like how long syllabi are getting. I taught my first course here in 2006 with a 3-page syllabi. It's like 13 pages now. I get it. I don't like that either. So, by looking at PS29 in more detail, we might be able to streamline what actually needs to be in the syllabus versus what can be provided in other places. PS44 covers our grading policies. So we look at things like rounding statements and grading and how attendance can be graded. PS45 talks about the process by which proposals for courses and curricula are handled. It also talks about definitions for credit hours, what types of courses are available. This is something that comes up at our meetings sometimes. A department might suggest they want to do a course as a lab, but maybe it's actually not really a lab, it's a recitation, or maybe it's a clinical. And we encourage academic units to explore these other course options that exist that might be more appropriate for the kind of things that you're doing. PS 117 is where the academic continuity plan must be included. And I would argue from my perspective, I would like to control what that academic continuity plan says. I would rather not have a default academic continuity plan. Again, I teach things like aquatic entomology, where we're working with specimens. I teach our capstone course, which is largely a field-based course. I want to dictate what the makeup activity would be. What's relevant to my discipline, my topics. I think it's actually great to have control of that, even though yet it's another statement we have to add. Our accrediting body requires course learning objectives and a 15-week calendar. Now, that's not a lot of guidance. So we're also going to help in PS29 to describe what a 15-week calendar would look like. It's a generic calendar. That's what they're envisioning. Week 1, you're going to do this. Week 2, you're going to do this. Week 3, you're going to do this. And it would show when assignments are due. It doesn't have to be a realistic calendar tied to actual calendar dates. For those departments offering 7-week courses, that's awesome. 7-week courses are great for a lot of students. You still have to have a 15-week calendar, because by our accreditation standards, every online course should be available to students in person. So we will require it. That is a part of our accreditation. We also have operating procedures where we'll look at things like, are you planning for enough time for assignments and activities? Is it realistic for a student to complete this course or a student to complete this degree? We've seen proposals where we couldn't figure out what it would take to finish a PhD. And we all have PhDs. So if we can't figure out what it takes to finish a PhD in that particular academic unit, how could a prospective student or a current student figure out how to graduate? And so we will send those back for further clarification. The Faculty Senate itself gave us the guidelines to recommend a generative AI statement. Again, as a faculty member, I would like to control. I know we can't really control, but I would like to at least tell the students what I would like them to do. I actually do use AI assignments in my classes. I have them do some AI assignments to show what the good, the bad, the ugly of what AI can do in my discipline. It's not getting better in the 5 years I've been doing it. So maybe 10 years from now it'll get better, but it still struggles. I'm also teaching a niche discipline, so that might also be part of it. And a new piece of guidance that we're operating under is that concentrations within degree programs must differ by at least 30%. I strongly encourage academic programs that are looking at their concentrations to run it by the Office of Institutional Effectiveness first. They have a formula to figure out what constitutes 30%. But we are not, as the Faculty Senate CNC, going to go out and find those concentrations. We're not the concentration police. We are obligated to catch it though when you make a proposal. So when we have these outcomes, we have a language like every committee does. When we approve something, it goes straight to academic affairs and then to the Board of Regents if necessary. It goes straight into the catalog depending on the nature of the proposal. A conditional approval means you make the change, it gets put to the top of the queue, and Office of Institutional Effectiveness, the University Registrar, and myself review it. And we generally go, cool, you make the change, then it goes into approval. If we say revise and resubmit, it goes back to your academic unit, then it comes back to the Faculty Senate Committee. We view it as a committee, then we approve and move it forward. Reject means we send you to the back of the line. And you have to start all over again. So we want to minimize rejections at all times. We want approve and conditional approve because that's where we get things through much faster. So this is the highlight to me. This is our academic year in review. People, we met 15 times. That's a lot for a Faculty Senate Committee. 552 proposals were reviewed this year. Last year, we reviewed over 350. That means we've done 900 proposals. And that's something I want you to take back to your departments. There's a lot of activity going on this campus. And I know things are slow, and I know that you want to get your degree programs listed in the catalog as fast as you can. But there's only so many people that can be on a committee. There's only so many proposals we can review in an hour and a half. I adopted the procedure used by my previous committee chair, Jeff Perry, to assign faculty leads. So each faculty member on the committee will review between 1 and 10 proposals. Some of our proposals are entire degree programs, so they'll review 1. Some of our proposals are drops or prereq changes, so they might review 10. By adopting this procedure, we were able to get through this massive volume. Did we clear all the backlog? I'm gonna be honest, we did not. We got one more meeting. We'll try. But it's just a lot of activity, particularly because a lot of departments are adding AI content or dealing with AI in their courses. There's new data degree programs being generated. So there's a lot of activity. Unfortunately, we returned about 1/3 of the proposals. And when we return a proposal, again, that means somebody has to look at it again. If it's a conditional approval, like the bottom, the 22%, I have to look at it again. The registrar has to look at it again. Office of Institutional Effectiveness looks at it again. So if we can knock those numbers down, that will speed up the process. 14% had serious issues. There was something that was problematic about the proposal. Sometimes it was the proposal was proposing a change that students wouldn't be able to complete the class, or sometimes the proposal was seriously overlapping content offered by another college, and avoidance of duplication is one of our charges. And so that's why we do ask for that communication to related programs. So if your action is going to affect a related program and you don't provide the communication, that's an instant revise and resubmit, because we need to see that evidence that you've talked it out between the two units. Many of these 117 could have been caught at the colleges, or should have been caught at the colleges. So think about this. By the time the Faculty Senate Courses and Curriculum Committee sees a proposal, it's supposed to be reviewed by a department and by a college. So minor issues should never get to us. It should be the big things. Things like, this doesn't line up with accreditation. There's a policy statement. Because we don't expect you all to understand the policy statements super deeply, but minor things like not rounding. I can't tell you how many times there's not rounding shows up. Let's all round. Or don't round. You can say you don't want to round. That's fine too, but you can't not say anything. So I'm particularly proud of this committee. That was a huge volume. We knocked out 67 proposals in one sitting. So we're trying real hard for y'all. Again, I want to plug our proposal checklist, which has 16 points. I just brought up the first 3. Before you submit your course or curricular proposal, you can check these points to make sure These common errors aren't being made. We do have a syllabus template that was worked on by this committee. You can just put your creative people, put your content in the boxes. Just make sure all the boxes have content. And finally, I want to hit on our future plans. I find PS 29 to be utterly unhelpful. It was intentionally vague to recognize we have colleges of music and dramatic arts all the way through engineering, through food science. We have a wide variety of degree programs, but sometimes it's too vague and needs a little more structure. So we are going to form a subcommittee to make some recommendations to Faculty Senate as a whole to discuss maybe making this a little bit more clear. And another thing that has come up over the last 2 years is PS 45 calls for a final examination, but that may not be relevant in your degree program. And I really think a lot about students in music and dramatic arts. A final performance is really a much better evaluation than sitting down and doing an exam. A semester-long project, a capstone experience, like it's used a lot in engineering, and we adopted that in natural resource ecology. That's a much better evaluation of what a student really knows than whether they can sit down on an exam. And so we want to amend the language to say a final activity is required to recognize the diversity of talented faculty we have here and awesome students that need an ability to express themselves that doesn't necessarily conform to sitting in a room with a blue book. So with that said, I'd like to entertain any questions you have, but I'm also recognize you all probably want to go home. So,
sure. So maybe we have time for just 1 or 2 questions, but I would, before we get to that, just like to thank Dr. Collar and his committee for the work that you guys have done. It's been a tremendous amount of work. They are all volunteers. They work very hard. And also we, made life a little more difficult by changing the workflow with the move to modern campus curriculum as well. So they've done an outstanding job. I know there have been questions about this, and I really appreciate him come and presenting to the Senate. So with that having been said, 1 or 2 questions we can work through at this point in time that you may have. I think he was right. I think you're all ready to go home. So thank you, Mike. I really appreciate this. And
thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak.
No, our pleasure. Thank you. Okay, and with that, we have reached the end of the agenda. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn scene day. Okay. All right, so I have Cook and Baldridge. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, everybody, thank you very much, and thank you for all your participation this year as well.